He never missed the 7:15 train. Rain, cold, or chaos, Daniel Bennett was always there, standing exactly 6 feet from the yellow line, hands in pockets, briefcase in left hand, eyes fixed on the old billboard across the platform. For 5 years, his routine never broke. But that Monday in November, everything changed. A girl appeared. She was sitting alone on the rusty bench of Platform 7, dressed in a dark blue coat, a scarf loosely tied around her neck, and a small red diary in her hands. Her eyes weren't reading. They were scanning, watching, waiting. For what? Daniel didn't know, but he noticed her the way a person notices an out-of-place painting in a familiar hallway. The train arrived. She didn't board. Daniel did. And for the next 3 days, the same thing repeated. 7:15. Platform 7. The girl. The bench. The diary. No words. No movements. Just presence. It disturbed him. Mildly at first, then deeply. On Thursday, curiosity overpowered habit. As people moved past him, he stayed. For the first time in 5 years, he missed the train. "Waiting for someone?" he asked, taking a careful step toward her. She didn't answer. Her eyes lifted briefly, then returned to the diary. "I've seen you here every morning," he added. "You never take the train." Still, silence. But something in her expression changed, like a window creaking open in a quiet house. "Why did you stay today?" she finally asked, her voice smooth but faint, as if unaccustomed to use. "I don't know," Daniel replied. "Something told me I'd regret not knowing your story." She looked up. For the first time, he saw her fully. Her eyes weren't just sad. They were haunted. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emily." "I'm Daniel." She gave a small nod, then looked away. "This platform," she said slowly, "is where my life ended, and where I'm trying to start it again." The words confused him. Ended. 2 years ago, November 5th. My fiancé, he never came. We were supposed to run away. He asked me to wait here, so I did. For hours. Then I found out he was killed in an accident that morning. Her voice cracked slightly. I never left the station. I couldn't. Not until I was sure he really wasn't coming. Daniel didn't know what to say. A million replies formed and dissolved in his mind. And the diary. It's all I have of him. He wrote it for me. Pages filled with dreams we never lived. Every morning I read one. Every morning I wait. I know it's crazy. No, Daniel said softly. It's not. They sat in silence. The train had long gone. Commuters thinned. A soft wind blew through the station. "Do you believe in fate?" she asked. "Sometimes." "Then maybe it brought you here." "Maybe." That morning they didn't say goodbye. Daniel walked away, but his steps were heavier than usual. That night, he dreamed of Platform 7. But it wasn't the same. It was empty, cold and darker than usual. The next morning she wasn't there. He looked around, walked across the platform, checked the bench. Empty. He waited for 10 minutes. 20. The train came. He didn't board. 30 minutes. Still no sign of Emily. A strange ache pressed against his chest. For the first time, the platform felt lonely. On the fourth day, she returned. But something was different. Her hair was wet from the rain, and her hands trembled as she turned the diary's page. "You came back," she said, not looking at him. "So did you," he replied. "I almost didn't." She closed the diary. "Why?" "Because yesterday, I went to the address in the back of this book. His brother still lives there. I wanted to return the diary to someone who knew him, but he refused to take it. Said I was the reason his brother died. That if I hadn't asked him to run away." Daniel watched her voice trail off, lost in the echoes of guilt. "You can't carry that blame," he said. "Grief makes people cruel sometimes." "Maybe," she said, "but it felt like I was holding on to something that wasn't mine anymore." "Then maybe it's time to write your own story." She looked at him. Really looked. "Would you help me?" He hesitated, then smiled. "Only if you let me start it with coffee." For the first time, she smiled. A real smile. Small, soft, but real. Deal. They walked away from the platform together, her diary tucked safely under her arm. Behind them, the 8:05 train pulled in, unaware of the story that had just stepped away from its shadow. The coffee shop across the street from the station smelled like vanilla beans and old books. It was the kind of place where time moved slower, where people lingered without needing a reason. They sat by the window. Emily kept her diary on the table between them, unopened. Daniel stirred his coffee without drinking it. "So, what now?" she asked. "Now," Daniel said, "we talk about anything except the past." She tilted her head. "Like what? Like your favorite movie, your worst haircut, or why you always tie your scarf crooked?" That made her laugh. Just a little, like rain tapping gently on glass. "Okay," she said. "I'll go first. Favorite movie, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Because sometimes I wish I could just disappear into a new life." "You kind of did," he replied. "Touché. Worst haircut? Age 15. Decided I wanted bangs. Ended up looking like a mushroom with anxiety." They laughed. It wasn't loud or forced. It was easy, clean, and surprising. Daniel talked next about how he once wore mismatched shoes to a meeting and didn't notice until halfway through a presentation. For an hour, they forgot the station, the diary, and the pain. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something rare. Relief. A gentle pause in a world that had been spinning too fast. After that morning, meeting became habit. Every day, 7 a.m., coffee shop by the window. They talked about everything and nothing. Some days, Emily brought a new page from the diary to share. Others, she left it at home. I used to think memories were everything, she confessed one day. Now I think they're just bricks. You can carry them or build something. Which one are you doing? He asked. Trying to build. Daniel noticed things, like how she smiled more now, how she ordered tea instead of coffee, how she still looked back at the platform every time they passed it. He never asked why. He knew grief didn't vanish. It transformed. On the 20th day of their routine, she didn't show up. No message, no clue. He waited until the afternoon, then went to the station. Platform 7, empty. The bench, still. A single red page rested where she used to sit. Daniel picked it up. It was a torn piece, from her diary. Just 5 words. I need to say goodbye. Panic replaced his calm. He called her. No answer. Texted. Nothing. The next morning, still no sign. He called local hospitals. Checked social media. Nothing. 3 days passed. Then finally a message. From her. A single text. Train, platform 7, tomorrow, 7:15. He barely slept. At 7 he stood on the platform. Same place, same posture. But inside, chaos. She arrived at 7:14. Hair tied back, wearing the same coat from the first day. No diary. You came? She said. Of course. I had to leave, she said. I needed to see if was strong enough to live without him. Without this place. Without you, even. Daniel nodded slowly. And were you? She didn't answer immediately. I was lost for 2 days. Then I realized I don't want to live without the new things I've found. I want to carry him, not be chained to him. That's growth, Emily. She smiled. Do you still believe in fate? Now more than ever. Then maybe fate brought us here to say goodbye to the lives we thought we had to live. She looked at the bench one last time. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for returning. As the 7:15 train approached, she reached for his hand. Come with me? He squeezed her fingers gently. Anywhere. They stepped onto the train. This time she didn't look back. And as the train pulled away from platform 7, the wind carried away a final whisper of the past, leaving only the hum of new beginnings in its place. The train moved through the city like a quiet thought. Neither of them spoke for the first few minutes. Emily stared out the window, her reflection barely blinking in the glass. Daniel watched her, sensing the weight of something unspoken. Where are we going? He finally asked. She turned toward him with a soft, uncertain smile. I don't know, but it feels good not to know for once. That answer felt right. They got off 3 stops later, in a part of town neither of them had explored before. The streets were quieter, older, like forgotten verses of a poem. Brick walls lined narrow alleys, and vintage stores were tucked between flower stalls and tiny cafes. "Let's make a rule," she said. "No phones, no clocks, just the day." He nodded. They wandered into a second-hand bookstore. Dust danced in the golden light. The air smelled of paper and time. Emily ran her fingers over the worn spines of forgotten novels. "When I was little, I thought books had souls," she said. "Maybe they do," Daniel replied. "Maybe they carry pieces of everyone who's, ever read them." She opened one, randomly, and smiled. It was a book of poetry. The page she landed on read, "The past is a country we leave behind, but its songs still echo in our bones." "That's beautiful," she whispered. "So are you," Daniel thought, but didn't say it out loud. Not yet. They bought the book, then walked, then stopped for ice cream from a cart manned by a cheerful old man who wore 2 watches and called everyone Captain. Emily got pistachio. Daniel got vanilla. She made fun of him for it. "You're the kind of person who orders plain toast at a buffet, aren't you?" "Absolutely not," he protested. "I go wild. Sometimes I add butter." She laughed again, freer than before. They spent hours wandering. In one park, they found a swing set. Emily sat down and began to swing gently, her scarf trailing like a ribbon behind her. "I forgot what this felt like," she said. "Light?" "Yes, and silly, and alive." Daniel stood nearby, hands in his coat pockets, watching her. Silhouette moved back and forth like a pendulum between then and now. "Emily," he said, when she finally slowed. "Can I ask something?" "Of course." "Are you still in love with him?" She didn't answer right away. The air between them thickened. "Yes," she said finally, "but not in the same way. It's more like I carry him in a different pocket now. He doesn't sit on my chest. He walks beside me. Quietly." Daniel nodded. That made sense. "Is there room beside you for someone else?" Her eyes searched his. "Maybe there is." "Then maybe we take this slow. No expectations. Just moments." She smiled. "Moments I can live with." The sun began to dip. They sat on a bench, watching the orange melt into pink. She leaned her head on his shoulder. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. But something passed between them. Some silent agreement. Some invisible bridge formed of shared wounds and tentative hope. As night crept in, they returned to the station. The train ride back was quiet, comfortably so. When they arrived at platform 7, it looked different. Smaller somehow, less powerful. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," she said. "I think this place doesn't own me anymore." She looked at the bench. It was empty. Just wood and metal now. No ghosts, no echoes. Just a place. "Thank you for helping me see that," Thank you for letting me be part of it." They stood there a while longer. Then she turned to him. "Do you want to walk me home?" "Only if you promise not to disappear again." "Promise." They walked through streets dusted with light, from old lamps, the kind that made the world feel like a memory you didn't mind reliving. When they reached her building, she hesitated at the door. "Daniel," she said, "would you maybe come up for tea?" He hesitated, not out of doubt, but respect. "Only if you're sure." She nodded. "I want to share something with you." Her apartment was small but warm. Plants curled toward the windows, books piled in cozy chaos. A candle flickered on the kitchen counter. She made tea. Chamomile. "He hated tea," she said with a grin. Said it tasted like boiled sadness. Daniel chuckled. "I disagree." She sat beside him on the couch and handed him a cup. Then she reached for a small box beneath the coffee table. Inside was the diary. "I wasn't ready to let it go, but I think I'm ready now to stop reading it every day." "You sure?" "Yes. But I want to read you one last page, one he wrote before he ever met me. I found it tucked at the back, folded." She unfolded the worn page. Her voice shook slightly as she read. "If I ever leave before I say all I should, I hope the one you find after me sees the world in you the way I did. And I hope you let them love you. You deserve it." She looked up. Her eyes were glassy but brave. Daniel reached for her hand. "You do deserve it, Emily." "And tell me what comes next," she whispered. "Tomorrow," he said, "we write a new page." Morning crept in slowly, painting the walls of Emily's apartment in soft gold. She hadn't slept much, but for the first time in years, the sleeplessness wasn't from sorrow. It was a different kind of restlessness, the kind that arrives when you feel the air around your life beginning to shift. Daniel had stayed until late. They had talked for hours, drifting from deep reflection to silly confessions, like how he secretly loved sad country songs, or how she once cried watching an advertisement about a lost puppy. It felt natural, easy, familiar, even though so much was still new. At 6:45 a.m., Emily stood in front of her mirror, tying her scarf the way she always did, crooked, carelessly knotted. She smiled at the imperfection. By 7, she was waiting outside the coffee shop. He arrived carrying 2 cups. "Still tea for you?" he asked. "Forever," she said. "And you?" "Graduated to hazelnut latte. Wild, I know." They walked past the station but didn't stop. Platform 7 was behind them. Now, not forgotten, just no longer central. "I was thinking," Daniel said, "maybe we start doing this on weekends too." "What?" "Walking. Living." She gave him a side glance and raised a brow. "Living? Big commitment." "I'm serious," he said. You've helped me see how much I was existing without actually experiencing anything. I don't want to go back to that. I want to live with intention. You sound like a self-help book, she teased. You love it, he shot back. Maybe, she admitted, sipping her tea. So what does intentional living look like for you, Mr. Hazelnut Latte? Trying new things, saying yes more, being honest when I'm scared, like now. She stopped walking. Scared? He turned to face her fully. Of how fast I'm falling for you. Her breath caught, not because it was unexpected, but because she felt it too, deeply, honestly. I'm scared too, she whispered, but I'm not running. Then maybe we're doing this right. That day marked a quiet shift. From then on, their days flowed differently. Sundays became adventure days. Museums, river walks, picnics in city parks. Wednesday evenings were for storytelling. They'd each write a short memory or fiction and read it aloud. Emily wrote about dreams she never chased. Daniel wrote about fears he'd buried beneath routine. They became each other's mirror, each other's soft landing. One Saturday, she asked him to visit her parents' old house, where she hadn't been in years. I want to face all the places I avoided, she said, but not alone. The house was a quiet ruin of memories, dust on the banister, creaky floors, photo frames slightly tilted on the walls. In her old bedroom, she found a childhood drawing of a tree with the words, "One day I'll grow here again." She sat on the bed, tears falling softly. Daniel didn't speak. He just sat beside her, his presence louder than any words. On the way back, she said, "Sometimes I forget how much healing hurts. Sometimes the hurt is proof you're healing." He replied. She nodded. The seasons began to change. Trees blushed in amber, skies stretched longer, and laughter became easier. On a cool November morning, exactly 1 year since she met him, Emily stood at Platform 7 once again. Not as a mourner, but as a visitor. She carried no diary, no pain, just a single white flower. She placed it on the bench, not for grief, but for gratitude. She turned, and there he was, holding 2 cups. "For the memory," he said, handing her one, "and for the journey." They walked away from the platform one last time. That night, Daniel took her to his favorite hill overlooking the city. The skyline sparkled below. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small box. Not a ring, not yet, but something just as precious. 2 keys, tied together with red thread. "What's this?" she asked. "A new home. Ours. I found a little place near the bookstore, with room for plants and memories." Her fingers trembled slightly as she held the keys. "You're serious?" "Only about the things that matter." "Daniel, I'm not asking you to forget anything. I'm just asking you to keep building with me." Tears filled her eyes. I thought I'd never find something like this again. You didn't find it, he said gently. You created it. She leaned in and kissed him, softly, like the beginning of a sentence. They moved in the next week. The place was small. Sunlight kissed the wooden floors in the morning, and wind whispered through the old windows at night. They filled it with laughter, mismatched cushions, and framed pages from her diary. Not to mourn the past, but to honor the journey. Every year, on November 5th, they returned to Platform 7, not to grieve, but to place a flower and whisper thanks. It became their ritual, not of sorrow, but of resilience. One spring afternoon, she found an old note tucked in a book Daniel had borrowed. In his handwriting, it said, "To the girl on Platform 7, thank you for not getting on that train." She folded it gently and placed it in the diary. Not the one filled with old dreams, but a new one, a blank one, for all the pages they still had left to write.